Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the DD Geopolitics podcast. I am your host, Sarah, and I am alone. There is no Chris today. He is fortunately for him, unfortunately for you, he is in Burkina Faso with Jackson doing important, big things that we're not privy to. So maybe we'll find out what they're up to after Chris gets back. But I do have another surprise for you. I am joined by a very special guest, all the way from one of our favorite countries and a hotspot of news and propaganda against it, Venezuela. My guest today is Susana Ramos, a political activist from Venezuela, here to talk about the Nobel Peace Prize farce, what it means for the United States, how the Venezuelans are feeling, and what we should look forward to or not look forward to. Welcome, Susanna. How are you? And thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thank you, Sarah. Thank you for having me, and thank you for this space, which is really necessary at this time. We are having a lot of problems right now, and these kind of spaces are really important for us to tell the truth about what is going on and what the people need to know about the truth of Venezuela.
I absolutely agree. We were speaking before the show began. I mean, a lot of our audience is too young, but I am old enough to remember Chavez, and I am old enough to remember the efforts to overthrow Chavez over and over and over again. And for our viewers that maybe don't know, our efforts against Venezuela are very far back reaching into the 90s, and the steadfastness of the Venezuelan people is what has prevented us, honestly, from getting a foothold in that country. And we're going to talk more about that today. But first, let's talk about, we are calling her Maria Guaida. We no longer have Juan Guaido. We have Maria Corina Machado winning the Nobel Peace Prize for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela and for her struggle to achieve a just and peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy. No more Juan Guaido. He's in Miami. He's having cocktails at Fontainebleau. But we have Maria Corina Machado here to usher in democracy with the United States. Wow. So, what are the general overall feelings about Maria winning this Nobel Peace Prize? Has there been a reaction from the people in Venezuela? And we'll also play some amazing clips that Susanna brought with us today, which I played before the show, and I'm shocked. So, please, but what is the general overall reaction of the Venezuelan people to the announcement of Maria receiving this award?
Well, there is a general rejections against these kind of things because maybe for one time you're giving a kind of important prize to a person who she's nothing to do with peace. This is a person most of the people don't know her prontuary, but this is a really a person who can use the violence for many times. His speech of violence has been for years and years here in our country. This is a person who openly calls for street violence for so long. She has been open about claiming intervention for Venezuela. And not only that, we know that he wrote a letter for Netanyahu asking for bombs. He was like, please, Mr. Netanyahu, come here to our country. Please send us some bombs for these people. And this is outrageous. Just the fact that an organization like Nobel Peace Prize can give this kind of reward to a person like this, it is outrageous. Not only for us, for the entire world. We are having genocide right now in front of our eyes, and we can see that this organization is supporting a person like this. It is awful, but most of the people knows that it is a part of a bigger plan. We know that they are trying to clean some image in here, and it is because all the intervention they want to have in our country, they need to Maria Corina Machado to do it. So when you give a prize like this to a person like Maria Corina, you reinforce the idea that we in Venezuela are living under a dictatorship. So if you're talking about living under that dictatorship, you can enter the country and try to save poor Venezuelan people because they are living in there. So this is a way for them to have the opportunity to come to the country, maybe organize an intervention and take the real thing behind this, which is oil. They want the oil of Venezuela. They want the resources of Venezuela. We have a lot of natural resources they need. So this is just a massive plan, and this is what they are going to do just to try to take it.
I agree. Susanna and I were discussing prior to this how Zionism and Zionist imperialism ties into this whole thing, but I don't think that we really need to discuss it because she brought a clip that explains it for us.
Maria Corina Machado, gracias. Thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you, and we'll stay in touch. And I promise one day we'll have a close relationship between Venezuela and Israel. And I believe, and I can announce this, that our government will move our Israeli embassy to Jerusalem. That will be part of our support to the state of Israel.
Wow, in God's will. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So another facet or another part of the motivation for overthrowing Maduro and replacing him with Machado is to reignite the relationship between Venezuela and Israel that Maduro has not really been very warm to. But this goes against the actual wishes of the Venezuelan people as a whole, correct?
Yes. They are trying to reinforce the idea that maybe this, well, she was really open about the support to Israel in many ways, but while this person is still calling for intervention and bombs and war and violence, the state of Venezuela are follow the correct path. We have a call for a meeting in the United Nations Security Council. We have a representative in there, which is the ambassador Samuel Moncada. He speak the truth about what is going on, and he asked for the United Nations just to maintain the order and the peace in the region. We are acting properly within the legal framework that it is necessary. So we are follow the path that we need just to defend the peace into the region.
We do have another clip that Susanna brought with us, and I really want to play this one because someone in the chat, I believe it was Hummus, mentioned that these people are shameless. Shameless is an understatement. They just tell you exactly what they plan on doing. Here she is with one of our favorites.
Forget about Saudi Arabia. Forget about the Saudis. We have more oil. Infinite potential. And we're going to open markets. We're going to kick off the government from the oil sector. We are going to privatize all our industry. Venezuela has huge resources: oil, gas, minerals, land, technology. And as you said before, we have a strategic location.
So, with Donald Trump Jr.
Just for you to take all the oil you want, because we have all the oil. Just came here, is yours. Just give me the power to me, and I can give you all the oil you want. This is not the first time they are doing something like that. But in the few months, we can see how they are, changing narratives against Venezuela per month. They started with the drums that we are fabricating with the Iran government, and then they just changed it to the Cartel de los Soles, talking about a criminal organization who are operating in the Latin America. And this is a book of mystery. They are doing something every single month. They are trying to elaborate a new narrative against us. They need to say something negative about us. And also the Tren de Aragua thing, in which they tried to sell the world the idea that every single Venezuelan immigrant in the outside is just part of a criminal organizations. And they tried to have the power to send them to and El Salvador prisons like animals, violating human rights, violating due process, and violating international law. Thanks to Nicolas Maduro, we have the opportunity to bring them back. They are here in Venezuela right now. Venezuela is the only country in the world who has policies to protect immigrant populations. And nobody is talking about that. Nobody is telling you that the real reason behind all these exodus that forced people to leave their home was all the sanctions and blockade that Maria Corina Machado is asking for our country. Nobody is talking about all these things. She is receiving right now a Peace Prize, and we are shocked because it is bigger than any idea I can transmit right now.
It's really wild as she receives a peace prize and then says, I want to overthrow the government and then privatize everything and hand it to you. And people who even study the smallest amount of history will be able to at least refer to the wonderful death squads that we trained and armed to run around protecting private interests inside of Latin and South America. What do you guys think will be needed? And this is rhetorical to the audience. What do you think will be needed to hold these places? They're going to need death squads protecting the private interests down in Venezuela. And we'll be back to banana republics, just like we were under Nixon and Reagan. And I think they sort of fell apart under Clinton. But speaking of that, I have been anyway, because I don't know who does the TikTok channel for Maduro or Telegram channel for Maduro, but I love it. He does the best videos, and I translate a lot of them to put on Twitter for our audiences. And a lot of my favorite things lately has been the sort of solidarity exhibited by the actual people of Venezuela, the references to the Bolivarian Revolution and upholding that, and sort of this militarization and I guess weaponization of the actual people who are more than willing to come out and sort of get involved and defend their land. Can you tell us anything about the people involved in these, what the Bolivarian militias are like and such?
Well, Bolivarian militias are ready to go. We are having a lot of practices right now in military field because we feel the need to if we have to do it, we are going to fight for our land. We are going to defend our country. We are going to defend our right to live in peace. We are going to defend our sovereignty, and we are going to defend our everything we need to defend for our country. This is not the first time they're trying to attack us, but we are the sons of Bolivar and Chavez, and we know what we need to do. We are really prepared, and the people, the will and the people in the street is we are having this force inside us, and we can feel it, and we feel the preparation of the people just to say, I'm going to defend my country. I'm not going to let my country to any foreign power just to came here to say that we are free and we are going to fight for that freedom.
Well, Susana, thank you so much for joining us. People ask all the time, they're saying, Maduro, he just talks a big game. And I'm like, no, everybody from Venezuela talks like that. They all talk about the Bolivarian Revolution. They all understand their history. I think Americans, it's sort of lost on Americans, the idea of fighting for your homeland because they've never had to in America. And I don't know that they ever have to, or they ever will have to in the near future. And I don't think that people know what they're up against when they cheer on this sort of, let's go into Venezuela. And I'm like, you don't know what going into Venezuela is going to be like. You guys have they have not a very good idea about what Venezuela actually is like. And I really hope that it doesn't come down to it, because I have a feeling that the Venezuelans will be a very formidable opponent, especially on their own home soil.
Of course. of course, and we are ready to defend the everything in our ideas. A revolution is not a revolution of 2 days. We have years in this. We have people who have been militating by so many years that they understand. But there is people outside that who cannot understand that. They feel like, oh no, Maduro is alone. Don't. But in the electoral field, they never won and they never will. This is a person, for example, Maria Corina Machado, she's so desperate because she never have the opportunity to win an election against the Bolivarian revolution. They never, in the battlefield of the elections, they never will beat us.
I think that's the perfect way to end it. Thank you so much, Susana. Is there anywhere people should come find you on TikTok or on Twitter? And if you have Viva to the Bolivarian Revolution.
I led my TikTok in there, Mangosta Digital, so you can find me in there. I'm making it is like a new project because I want to share some information, and it is a channel that I'm preparing just to make more videos talking about how is the daily routine here in Venezuela, what are we doing, and most information about the government and all the things we are doing in here. So if you can supporting me in there, I'm going to wait, and I'm going to prepare more new videos every single month and weeks, just to spread most information for people who wants to know about Venezuela.
Thank you so much, Susana, and Viva Venezuela, or hands off Venezuela, as all Americans should be saying right now. Hands off Venezuela. Thank you again, and I hope that we will be in touch soon, and you are always, always, always welcome back on the show. Please, please come back. We will see you soon.
I will, I promise.
Okay, I'm going to try to do this by myself, which I've never done a solo stream. So let's see how we get through this. First, we'll start with a Trumpdate, which I'm calling our updates on Trump these days, which I can barely keep up with what's going on. He did send out a invitation, which was interesting. A lot of people got invitations to the Middle Eastern Peace Plan Summit. Israel will not be attending. Iran was invited. I'm not sure if they're attending. Maybe others can chime in. Interestingly enough, Qatari negotiators were in Egypt and were involved in a fatal car accident, killing multiple and injuring a few others. Some people suspect foul play, but I haven't seen any evidence to suggest that. Additionally, before he headed off to the Middle East, Trump got a COVID booster, which I thought was pretty interesting. I thought MAGA was like anti-vaccination, anti this, whatever this is. But I don't know. So he gets his COVID booster, and then one more thing. He crashes the market. Now, I'm a woman and I don't have a lot of money. Two things that preclude me from understanding money at all. But apparently there was some sort of huge crypto rug pull shorting. I have no idea how this stuff works, guys. I don't even understand real money, let alone starting to get a grasp on fake money. But I did read a bunch of crypto people. They were upset. Crypto is a rigged casino. Apparently, colossal Bitcoin shortage. This person, nobody knew who they were. Now, amounts have differed. People have also noted different transactions. Some people have said it's 80 million. Some people have said it's up to 200 million. Some people have said it's two different wallets. So we don't really know. And it's still going. Before I went live today, there was another one where they made another like 120 million off of it. So the bloodbath continues. But here's this 190 to 200 mil. And then we have this is the Bitcoin short that happened the day he announced the tariffs against China. 30 minutes before the tariff announcement, they made 88 million. That's an interesting number. This wallet was open today. This is insane. And then you had an Ethereum short, which amounted to 333 million. And then there was another one today. I believe today was also on Bitcoin. And then Forbes reported that Barron made 80 million from Bitcoin and crypto. So, I mean, it's not really that much money when you think about it, but it's like a whole web of incestuous weirdos enriching themselves repeatedly. Interestingly enough, the Russians, skeptical and late to the party on everything, called this out back in September.
Америка прямо сейчас пытается поменять правила на рынке золота и криптовалют. Вспомните, какой у них долг. 35 триллионов долларов. В общем-то, это два альтернативных валютному сегменту мировых рынка. Действия Вашингтона в этом направлении отчетливо демонстрируют одну из главных американских задач. Они очень хотят решить проблему снижения доверия к доллару. В США, как это было и в 30-е, и в 70-е годы, будут решать свои финансовые проблемы за счет всего мира, загоняя всех куда? В криптовалютное облако. Со временем, когда часть госдолга США будет размещена в стейблкоинах, США обесценит этот долг. Еще раз простыми словами. У них сейчас валютный 35-триллионный долг. Они его загоняют в крипту, в облако, обесценивают и начинают с нуля. Это для тех, кто очень любит заниматься криптой.
Again, I'm feeble-minded and I don't really know how crypto works, but I have heard these sorts of theories floating around. Maybe these are practice runs, or maybe these are just market manipulations to make a quick buck or something like that. But then Trump kind of ends up in his Baghdad Bob arc today, where he says, don't worry about China. They will all be fine. Highly respected President Xi had a bad moment. He doesn't want depression for his country, and neither do I. The U.S. just wants to help China, not hurt it. I feel like this is some incredibly heavy projection. I mean, we could probably just replace Trump's name with Xi's name and all of the other respective terms, and it would really just read correct. Don't worry about the United States. It will all be fine. Highly respected. That's doing a lot of heavy lifting. President Trump just had a bad moment. He doesn't want a depression for his country, and neither do I. This is so incredible. Already backing away, but it doesn't matter because they've all made billions of dollars off of their fun crypto scam party. I don't know what do we want to call it. Who the hell knows? But that was their little pregame before they all headed off to the real party, which was in Israel. Before they headed off to it, well, this was from today, yesterday. Levin, I'm just going to play it because why not?
That war in Gaza would be over in less than a month if the Israelis used the firepower they had in Gaza. But it doesn't matter. We still have news sites, including Israeli news sites, American news sites, who continue to talk about the casualty numbers that are fed to them from Hamas. No matter how many experts from the Wharton School and others say it's not possible what they're talking about, the death of children and the death of women, it doesn't matter. They keep pushing it because they push an agenda. It doesn't matter that the New York Times used phony photos on the front page of its newspaper. You know, during the Holocaust, we had black and white films, largely thanks to Eisenhower, who said, I want you to get your TV crews in there, and I want these so people see what happened. We have film after film after film. People can see it online. You don't have that in Gaza. Instead, you have phony pictures. Instead, you have propaganda coming from Hamas that uses its hospitals, its mosques, that slaughters its own people.
So we're the math ain't mathin' regardless. But it's funny that Levin says we have all these Holocaust films. We don't have any films of Palestine. But then Van Jones was complaining the other night that the whole entire feed is just Gaza. So what is it? Is there there's no footage of the genocide, or there's the whole feed is footage. You really can't make heads or tails with these people. And I think that's part of the idea, is to never really get a firm footing. Yes, the Hamas is destroyed. Hamas is getting stronger again. Hezbollah, we've ruined them. Oh, Hezbollah is reconstituting. There's no stability. Kind of like the market. There's everything is just in constant flux. We're just flooding the zone. So the gang does arrive in Gaza. Well, they're going to Israel first, and then they're going to Egypt. We talked about, leading up to this, we've covered extensively the plans for Gaza and the people involved, mostly Tony Blair, Larry Ellison, Steve Witkoff, the White House real estate agent, and Jared Kushner, Ivanka's personal twink. And if you guys recall, a week ago or so, I think it was last week's episode, a reporter asked Pam Bondi about why, to give a reason or an explanation as to why Jared Kushner was involved at all, as it is an enormous conflict of interest. To which I wish I still had the clip. I should have uploaded it again. But to which she replies completely indignant and says, "How dare you even ask or insinuate that anything is untoward or anything is improprietary with Jared Kushner being involved in this wonderful peace plan." And let me be honest about the peace plan, a little venting. Because the Gazans were celebratory, and because it's a positive thing that people are no longer dying in mass in Gaza, I do support that, and I consider that a huge W, no matter how you look at it. This peace plan feels yucky. It has a very sinister undertone, and I'm a big, maybe because again I'm a woman, this must be the estrogen laden episode, but there's something not right. There's something tugging at my intuition that just feels evil or sinister or ulterior, or I don't know. But here's Jared Kushner upon arrival.
I couldn't be more proud to see the way that the state of Israel and its people have carried themselves through this traumatic, unthinkable, horrific experience. Instead of replicating the barbarism of the enemy, you chose to be exceptional. You chose to stand for the values that you stand for. And I couldn't be prouder to be a friend of Israel, somebody who supports Israel, and somebody who fights very strongly to see Israel survive, succeed, and to achieve its fullest potential. I couldn't be more proud to see the way that the state of Israel and its people have carried themselves. Instead of replicating the barbarism of the enemy, you chose to be exceptional. You chose to stand for the values that you stand for. And I couldn't be prouder to be a friend of Israel, somebody who supports Israel, and somebody who fights very strongly to see Israel survive, succeed, and to achieve its fullest potential. I couldn't be more proud to see the way that the state of Israel and its people have carried themselves. Instead of replicating the barbarism of the enemy, you chose to be exceptional. I couldn't be more proud.
So I don't know. I guess that footage isn't real. It's AI footage made by our same overlords, Peter Thiel and them. Like, I'm not understanding, but I guess that's something for us all to be proud of. That's exceptionalism. At least they're At least you get a juxtaposition of the word exceptionalism next to that absolute destruction and desolation of Gaza, because that's American exceptionalism too. Just look at Iraq. Well, not anymore, but look at Iraq, Afghanistan, and others. And like I said, the peace plan, ceasefire, all feels very yucky. And Bibi Netanyahu gives me no reason to feel comfortable. And here he is.
ואני רוצה להגיד לכם, בכל מקום שנלחמנו, ניצחנו. אבל באותה מידה, אני חייב להגיד לכם, המערכה לא תמה. יש עדיין אתגרים ביטחוניים גדולים מאוד לפנינו. חלק מאויבינו מנסים להשתקם כדי לתקוף אותנו שוב. וכמו שאומרים אצלנו, אנחנו על זה. יש גם הזדמנויות גדולות שלא ידענו כמותן, דווקא בגלל הניצחונות שהבאנו. אני משוכנע שבכוחות משותפים אנחנו נתגבר על האתגרים ונממש את ההזדמנויות.
War's not over, battles aren't all won, multiple opportunities have now opened because of our victories. What opportunities could those be? You know, we heard about how devastating the pager attack was, and how decimated Hezbollah was. And last week, Bibi Netanyahu mentioned that they're stronger than ever. So that's where we're at. And I think there's no reason to really feel comfort in this Gaza peace plan. It feels like a big show, a dog and pony show, a reason to sort of grease each other's palms and kind of pass money around. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm still keeping an open mind and keeping an ear to the ground with the summit and the conversations surrounding it. But the whole thing just feels off. We've also reported on the militias inside of Gaza, which have become active again. Very much active. These militias have been armed, trained, and encouraged by Israel. We've written about them. We've reported on them. There's free articles on our Substack on them. But they are engaged in armed clashes with Hamas. These are the same militias that were accused of stealing food, inflating food prices, hurting, and I think in some cases killing Palestinians seeking aid. So there's still violence inside of the Strip, obviously at the hands of Israel, being armed and trained. A lot of these militias are headed by criminals and drug smugglers that were in Palestinian prisons and were subsequently released during the chaos of the last 2 years of genocide. So there's still a lot more loose ends to be tied up inside and outside of Gaza. I just don't. Nothing feels final. It just doesn't. It's just not sitting very right with me. But then while we're at it, let's check in with the other retard that we feed our money to.
Of course, it gives signals for us and hope that with such pressure, what President Trump used in Middle East to make peace, and I hope that he will use the same instruments even more to pressure Putin to stop his war in Ukraine. I hope so, and I spoke about it as president.
Zelensky wants Trump to use the same mechanisms and tools to put pressure on Putin as he did to solve Gaza. That's not going to work. I don't think that Twink Kushner is going to be received very well in Russia, and they already make fun of Steve Witkoff. So good luck to Zelensky, I guess. That's still going strong. Yes, he always says piss, Summer. We unite in piss. It's piss. It's not peace. I mean, anyway. So good luck to Zelensky. That's still going strong. There were multiple Kinzhal launches the other night. And I believe it was Odessa, Dnipropetrovsk, and maybe Kiev that were hit. So that's still ongoing. Also discussions. You gotta love Zelensky. I didn't upload the and we might have just touched on it on Wednesday, but I'll touch on it again. You have to love Zelensky because he's always a wheeler and a dealer. You know, he said he will not nominate Trump for a peace prize, I guess next year, because this one's over, unless he gets Tomahawk missiles, which is amazing. You really got to love this. You really have to love these corrupt, ridiculous, warmongering leaders. I'll nominate you for a peace prize if you give me bombs that can reach Moscow. Like, this is the world that we're living in now. Bombs for peace prizes. Don't forget that Zelensky also holds the pilgrimage in Uman, which is a very popular pilgrimage for Hasidic Jews. To go to every year. I believe it's for Yom Kippur, might be for Rosh Hashanah. I got the two mixed up. They're in the pretty much same time frame. So the last time Zelensky held this over the head of Netanyahu in order to get patriots out of Bibi Netanyahu. So Zelensky's always a shyster. You have to love Zelensky. He does what he can to get what he wants. This is another thing that's been on my mind a lot recently. We were just talking about it today in a space about I don't really take public opinion. I don't give it too much credence or weight. I just don't. I usually don't feel like politicians really respond too much to public opinion. I don't think that it drives too much of policy. But this seems like things are getting really interesting. We've talked about and we've covered the multiple campaigns that Israel is waging. Israel is officially calling it the eighth front of their war. This is, I guess, a war on the American people, maybe the American psyche. They don't think that that the support in the United States is fervent enough for Israel's survival, or maybe just to their liking. More polls have come out. We've talked about all of the polls. We've reported on them. I love polls. As you guys know, I'm a poll whore, POLL, not POLE. But the polls since June have been quite striking. And a recent poll came out, and sorry guys, it's from CNN.
Yeah, this war caused a historic shift in public opinion on how Americans view the Middle East conflict. What are we talking about here? Who voters sympathize more with, the Israelis or the Palestinians? Back in October of 2023, it was the Israelis by 48 points. Look at this shift. Now we're talking about the Palestinians by a point. I looked back at every single poll that I could possibly find since this question was first asked in the 1980s. This is the first time ever in which the Palestinians had any sort of lead on this particular question. It is very clear that this war caused a historic shift away from the Israeli position in the Middle East conflict and towards the Palestinians when it comes to who Americans and voters sympathize with. This, of course, was led by Democrats, because what are we talking about? We went from Democrats favoring the Israelis by 26 points to the Palestinians by 46 points. That is a shift, John, quick math in my head, of over 70 percentage points. But overall, the first time ever in which more Americans sympathize with the Palestinians over the Israelis. Truly a historic shift.
It's a big shift overall, a big shift within the Democratic Party. What about Republicans?
Yeah, it's not just Democrats, though, in which we have seen a real shift of opinion. Even within the Republican ranks, this war has caused real division. What are we talking about? Well, we often talk about by age within the Democratic Party, but what about by age within the Republican ranks? Who Republicans sympathize more with? You see a massive, huge age divide. Those 50 and over, what we see amongst Republicans is they sympathize more with the Israelis by 66 points. But look at the voters under the age of 50. They do sympathize with the Israelis, but just by 25 points. We're talking about a 40-point difference, with the youngest Republicans being far more sympathetic to the Palestinian position than older Republicans are.
That's a huge gap right there. Let's just say that.
That is a huge gap, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the Republican Party adjusts going forward.
All right, the news of the ceasefire deal, the possible return of all Israeli hostages, what's likely to be the reaction to that?
Yeah, I think Americans are really going to like it. And why do I say that? Because just look at the polling. A permanent Israeli-Hamas ceasefire, that is negotiating one. Highly important. That is extremely or very important, 51% of Americans. And then you see somewhat important, 31%. Over 80% of Americans said the idea of negotiating a ceasefire, a permanent one, was at least somewhat important. So the bottom line is I think a lot of Americans are really going to like this.
They want this over. Harry, and really interesting numbers this morning. Thank you very much.
John.
Love how all you guys in the comments are like yelling at me because I'm playing CNN. Okay, but we like have to take into some mainstream media into consideration so we can pick it apart. Obviously, I also love that he gives so much credit to the Democrats. Whatever, but it still is a huge swing in sentiment, and I think it's time that this kind of becomes a serious discussion. Especially since we know that the Israelis are taking it seriously. And we know the influencers are taking it seriously. So, and for them to call it the eighth front of the war, I think that, that's them pretty much declaring war on us, at least our sentiments or our emotions. And I think that if someone declares war on you, you should respond or at least understand what that entails. And so I think this should become part of the conversation. So again, they're taking it very seriously. So seriously, it is the lead story in the New York Times today. Talking about, and I highly suggest you read it. It ties in all the polls we've discussed leading up to this. The poll saying that Americans believed that Israel was intentionally harming civilians. Other polls saying, that they much more sympathize with the Palestinians, that they think the death toll is higher than is being revealed, so on and so forth. So this is something that they're taking incredibly seriously. Now with the ceasefire, and that's how this article frames it, now that we have a ceasefire in place, quote unquote, how do we repair they say the U.S.-Israel relationship is in tatters, to quote Ursula, but they use the same word, in tatters, which is a pretty strong language. And I think that's a testament to how much public opinion has changed. I think a lot of us live in a bubble online, and I try to keep that in mind when I'm thinking about these things, and to know that, online rhetoric is often much more exaggerated. So are feelings and emotions, and often not true. But apparently this is leaking out into like real life where the real people live as well. And I find that pretty important. Also wanted to tie this into Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel's, some of his little quotes from his Antichrist seminar have leaked. My favorite one is, in the 17th and 18th century, the Antichrist would have been a Dr. Strangelove, a scientist who did all of this sort of evil, crazy science. In the 21st century, the Antichrist is a Luddite who wants to stop all science. It's someone like a Greta or Eliezer. Interesting to introduce Greta, or to single her out, given her role and everything lately. And interesting that the Antichrist, to him at least, and he's giving seminars on the Antichrist, so apparently he's an expert on it. I don't know how you become an expert on the Antichrist. But apparently the people that are saying, whoa, maybe we don't want mass surveillance and a life ruled by technology, are the actual Antichrist. Does that mean that the technology is the Christ? And we were talking about this a little bit today. Maybe it's a little wee-woo. I'm not a theologian. I'm not particularly religious. I don't know enough about eschatology. But people were saying maybe the technology is the third temple. And that's something to think about. I feel like I'm getting up into like the tinfoil hat kind of territory, guys. So I apologize for that. But I mean, what is the case he's trying to make here? Anybody that tries to get in our way is the Antichrist? Anybody that says, I might not be uncomfortable with how quickly this is all sort of advancing in terms of AI and the tech sector, and those people are the Antichrist? He also went on to say he doesn't think Trump is the Antichrist, and that Xi and Biden aren't charismatic enough to be the Antichrist. But Greta is? I mean, and if you guys don't know what Luddites are, please go look them up. It's the protest movement from the industrialization period. And people who weren't very comfortable with the advanced, industrialization going on. And so I guess those people were the Antichrist. I'm not really sure. I don't really know. But what I get from what a message I do get from this is that anybody trying to stop or push back on the AI space race is the Antichrist. And inversely, if that's the case, then you'd have to believe that anyone pushing for the advancement of AI is ushering in the Messiah, or is at least doing something morally good. Is that? I guess that's where we're kind of at. I'm not sure, but to wrap this up, and this is kind of the sort of bow I want to put on it. To wrap this up, one of our the only likable, I guess, kind of likable tech bros these days, Pavel Durov, sent us a message for his 41st birthday, which showed up as a pop-up, which I've never seen before. This one, calling it the end of the free internet. The free internet is turning into a tool of control. Guys, keep in mind, we reported a couple weeks ago or a couple episodes ago that the EU, Brussels, was pressuring Pavel to help them rig the Moldovan election, to which he refused. And he was pretty open about that. And it seemed he was quite dejected. But here's the message. I'm turning 41, but I don't feel like celebrating. Our generation is running out of time to save the free internet built for us by our fathers. What was once the promise of the free exchange of information is being turned into the ultimate tool of control. Once free countries are introducing dystopian measures such as digital IDs in the UK, online age checks like Australia, and mass scanning of private messages in the EU. Germany is persecuting anyone who dares to criticize officials on the internet. The UK is imprisoning thousands for their tweets. France is criminally investigating tech leaders who defend freedom and privacy. A dark dystopian world is approaching fast while we're asleep. Our generation risks going down in history as the last one that had freedoms and allowed them to be taken away. We've been fed a lie. We've been made to believe that the greatest fight of our generation is to destroy everything our forefathers left us. Tradition, privacy, sovereignty, the free market, and free speech. By betraying the legacy of our ancestors, we've set ourselves on a path towards self-destruction, moral, intellectually, economic, and ultimately biological. So no, I'm not going to celebrate today. I'm running out of time. We are running out of time. For a multi-billionaire tech entrepreneur to post that as the front and center post on his international social media platform used by millions of users is jarring, to say the least. It's jarring. And all of that coming on the heels of them making Gaza into this sort of dystopian, technocratic nightmare, while Peter Thiel tells us that anyone trying to stop that is the Antichrist. And Pavel Durov is telling us we're descending into what appears to be a no return abyss. We always feed you a black pill. You guys know that. It's important to understand what we're dealing with here. And I just find it incredibly spooky almost for Durov to come out and say that. And I think that I've been reading it constantly out loud as much as I can, because I think it needs to be taken seriously and I think it needs to be heeded. We're losing our freedoms one by one by one. In the Western world, the place that's supposed to be the bastion of freedom and democracy and free speech. And those freedoms are incrementally being taken away. And that sort of process has accelerated tremendously in the last 6 to 12 months. Well, following the black pill, I have to give you some levity. If you guys are interested in supporting us And you can now do so on our website. And we have a special button for Bibi Netanyahu when he's done at the summit. We will certainly post things for $7,000 a post. So, but guys, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you for making my first solo stream a kind of a success. Painless, we'll say painless. Susanna was amazing. I hope that she will come back on. I think I have some super chats. Hummus, as always, thank you. The 3 to 4 Qataris diplomats killed in a car accident makes me quite. You know, I thought the same thing. I'm really trying not to be as cynical as I have been lately, and I don't know why you would go anywhere near a negotiating table with the Americans. Anybody in person. Why? I don't know why you would go anywhere near a negotiating site with the Americans. I mean, how many people need to die while in or heading to or at negotiations? I'm not really sure. Put this toward I will. You know, I'm gonna go on this journey. I'm gonna start making soups. I feel like they're economical. They're also very healthy and good for you. And I needed an immersion blender. So I will do that. I will put this towards my immersion blender and I will make potato and leek soup. I don't know why Sarah doesn't, because I'm nervous. I don't want to go. I don't need any more. Like, I don't really like talking out into the void. I don't know. Maybe I will kind of do this more often. I'm not sure. I need to be on Spaces less. I need to make myself less accessible to the riffraff public on X and dedicate myself to my actual people that actually like me and value me. But that'll all come down the line. On Wednesday, and no pressure, I will be hosting Maze Love, who you probably all know. She's the queen of Twitter. But she will be here to talk more about the surveillance state, Project Esther, and especially HR 4779, which actually relinquishes more of our rights to Israel, or at least to these sort of Zionist overlords. But with that being said, everybody send good vibes to Chris and Jackson as they are in Burkina Faso. Hopefully meeting with Ibrahim Traore. We will see what content they produce us. So fingers crossed on that. Also want to recommend this book. I just finished this. This has been on my shelf. Sorry. A Peace to End All Peace. This has been on my shelf for like a year, and I finally picked it up and read it. It's from the 90s about World War I, and it is fantastic because it's before like political correctness took over books, and so it's pretty good. It's got a nice hefty dose of reality in there, and I think that I'm sure you can find it for free. It's called A Peace to End All Peace by David Frumkin. It's a really popular book. It's a book that's a lot of colleges include in their syllabi, which is interesting because it's not politically correct at all. Highly recommend it. And I would read it. And now I'm reading Dan Kovalik's new book, which you guys, if you haven't checked it out, check out our stream with Dan Kovalik and buy his new book, Syria, Anatomy of Regime Change, before we get to the next attempted regime change in Venezuela. So once again, thank you guys. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, what's left of it. And we will see you on Wednesday with me and Maze, and likely not Chris as he's still traveling. But if Chris comes, that's a bonus. Thank you guys once again for my first solo stream, making it painless. And I will talk to you all very soon.